Hi there, Bobcats. This is Mrs. Quiggins, and I am so excited to be here with you today because Mrs. Mullinax asked me if I would do Terrific Kids. Now, I haven't done this in a while, and this absolutely makes my day to be able to tell you who this week's Terrific Kids are. So let me start. Here we go. Okay, from Miss Ishley's pre-K class, we have Carrie Joseph. And Miss Ishley says that Carrie is bubbly and friendly to all. He enjoys helping out others and engaging in imaginative play. Keep up the great work, Carrie. In Miss Darden's class, we have Charlotte Booten. And Mrs. Darden says that Charlotte is kind to others and always is a fabulous helper to Mrs. Darden. We are so lucky to have her in our class because she is an amazing Buck Lake Bobcat. Well done, Charlotte. From Miss Gregory's class, we have Bailey Hinojosa. And Miss Gregory says that Bailey is such a kind, helpful, and loving friend. She has a special way of making everyone feel safe and special. Bailey works so hard each and every single day. We are so happy to have her in our class family. I love you. Miss Gregory wrote that, but I love you too, Bailey. Way to go. For Miss Lazarus's class, we have Zainab Baham. And Miss Lazarus says that Zainab is polite and respectful to all of her classmates and teacher. She is most known for asking others how they feel and helping them feel welcome in our class. Way to go. We love having you in our class. And also from Mrs. Lazarus's class, we have Grayson James. And Mrs. Lazarus says that Grayson is pleasant to have in class. He is most known for his smile and for being kind to others. Grayson's classmates love playing and laughing with him. Way to go, Grayson. We love having you in our class. And from Mrs. Shank's room, we have Colson Rogers. And Mrs. Shank says that Colson is doing a super job in kindergarten. He works hard and it is showing. He is growing every day, which is wonderful because you're almost going to be a first grader, Colson. From Mrs. Howell's class, we have Bowen. And Mrs. Howell says that Bowen is our terrific kid this week because he always tries his best. He is a great listener and is the first to raise his hand to answer a question. Bowen is kind and thoughtful. Great work, Bowen. And from Mrs. McLeod's class, we have Court Enfinger. And Mrs. McLeod says that Court is an excellent student. He is helpful to others and he loves to learn. For Mrs. McDermott's class, we have Jordan Gamble. And Mrs. McDermott says that Jordan is a hard worker and a kind friend, which are two wonderful things to be. Hard worker, kind friend. You'll get Terrific Kid every time for those two things. From Mrs. O's class, we have Amelia Lawless. And Mrs. O says that Amelia is our Terrific Kid this week because she is always excited about learning and does her best on all her assignments. So Amelia, way to go. From Miss Soper's class, we have Genji Martin. And Miss Soper says that Genji has become an excellent student with both his behavior and learning. He has become a very good listener. Genji is also very kind and thoughtful. It is wonderful to have Genji as part of our amazing class. From Mrs. Davis's room, we have Anya Chinamalready. And Mrs. Davis says that Anya is a wonderful student. She goes above and beyond each day. Anya is always a great friend and a great helper to others. Way to go, Anya. You are terrific. From Miss Williams' class, we have Magnolia Hartman. And Miss Williams says that Magnolia is our terrific kid this week because she is a kind classmate and a hard worker. She has a very creative mind. We are so glad she became a bobcat this year. Way to go, Magnolia. From Mrs. Schmidt's room, we have Aubrey Floyd. And Mrs. Schmidt says that Aubrey was voted our next terrific kid because she loves everything marker. She's our best mini teacher, and she has a heart that is too big for her body. That reminds me of the Grinch with his heart and how his heart grew and grew and grew. So, Aubrey, you're like the Grinch, but in a good way, Way to go, Aubrey. And let's see, Miss Schrader's room. We have Keegan Cure, and Mrs. Schrader says that Keegan was voted terrific kid because of his teamwork in class, his willingness to help anyone and everyone, his determination, and his cheerful attitude. And I have to agree with that because Keegan always has a smile on his face. We are so lucky to have Keegan on our class team. And from Miss B's class in 4th grade, we have Olivia. And Miss B says that Olivia is such a kind-hearted friend. She always is encouraging and helpful to her classmates. Olivia is a wonderful student, and we are lucky to have her in our class. And from Mrs. Doherty's class, we have Hartley Lassiter. And Mrs. Doherty says that Hartley is a wonderful student. She's working hard, helping others, and always puts a smile on everyone's face. We are lucky to have her as part of our classroom family. Keep up the great work. So Bobcats, those are our terrific kids for the week. I'm so proud to read every single one of those names. I am very proud of you. Your teachers are proud of you. Keep up the great work, and I'll see you next time.